Sudama was the childhood friend of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna hailed from royalty and was the avatar of Lord Vishnu. But Sudama, he hailed from a family of priests of lower socioeconomic status. One day, Sudama was in his home, and his wife came to him, her name was Sushila, and said, "My lord, you're in a very pitiable state. And look at our children. They're going for days without food or water. We need help." And she knew that Sudama was the childhood friend of Lord Krishna because they grew up together in an ashram or school where they learned various ancient religious texts and Vedic literature and chants. And she knew that one day when they parted, Lord Krishna went on to Dwaraka where he became king. But Sudama, he became very, very poor because of his austere living and him always praising God and going and living like a sage. So she told him, "My lord, why don't you go meet Lord Krishna and ask him for help? He is a king after all." So Sudama said, Are you a mad woman? You want me to go see my best friend after so many long years and ask him for money? It's just out of mind." Sushila, she said, okay, I understand that you wouldn't want to do that, but look at your children, they're suffering. We just need some help. And she said, and she knew that Vasudeva Krishna was the Lord of the universe and that nothing, just going to see him would be such a blessing. So she said, "Why don't you go see him? And you don't have to utter a word about our poverty." And he said, "Okay, fine. If you insist, I will go see him." But he said, "I'm going to go see a king. How can I go empty-handedly? What can I bring, Sushila? What can I bring?" And she said, "Wait 1 second." And she skedaddled from this end of the room to that end of the room, looking for something to bring him, but there was just nothing to give as a gift. So she said, "Wait 1 second." And she ran out to the neighbor's house and she knocked on their door and said, "Hello, please, can I borrow just a few handfuls of poha, parched rice? I'll definitely repay you after some time." And the neighbor went inside the house, took some poha, wrapped it in a little cloth, and gave it to her. And she thanked the neighbor so much. She said, "Thank you so much for letting me borrow some parched rice. I will repay you soon." So she took that cloth and she came home and she tied it on a little stick, gave it to Sudama on a little bindle, also commonly known as a hobo stick. And Sudama took it and he was off to go on this large journey. But Sushila reminded him, "I know this is a very simple gift, but Lord Krishna loves this. So if you give it to him with love, he will really cherish it. So please give it to him unhesitantly." So Sudama said, "Okay." And he took it, chewing on the memories he had with his dear friend, took off and he started walking towards this palace. Now, this journey wasn't really short. This was such a long journey. He had to walk for over 24 hours. But he just walked and asked all the townspeople for directions. And finally, he made it to the extravagant palace, and with all its exterior with gold and diamonds and emerald all over its exterior. And he finally arrived and he was walking up to the palace gates when clink, 2 spears go in front of him. And he's like, "Whoa." And he realizes the guards are there holding their spears saying, "You shall not pass." And he says, "Please let me in. I'm here to see my best friend. Can you please tell him Sudama's here? He will be surely very excited." And the guards looked at each other and they started laughing, a little bit confused. This man wearing tattered clothing with blistered feet, doesn't even seem to have a horse, not even the wealth of a soldier, claims to be our king's best friend. It's just crazy. And they said, "No, you cannot go. You have to go and wait in the corner." And he waited and waited and waited. And he was a little upset because what would you do if your wife forces you to go see someone and you walk over 24 hours to go see someone and you're not allowed to go see them? So he was waiting and waiting. And finally, Lord Krishna from his room walks out to the balcony upstairs and looks down to get some fresh air and looks down and he sees his best friend Sudama. Now this king, he's a king. He doesn't even grab his shoes. He runs downstairs, pushes the guards out of their way, goes outside and hugs Sudama and says, "My dear friend, why didn't you come see me so long ago?" And he hugs him and they're embracing and they're crying. They can taste the salt from their own tears and they're so excited to see each other. And then Lord Krishna, he carries Sudama inside and he pushes the guards again to the side and runs and places him at his own throne, this great king. putting such a simple man with no money, no food on his throne. And Lord Krishna fetches for with his servants, bring me a basin of water and sandal paste. And he brings it and he washes Sudama's feet with his own hands, this king. And Sudama is just charmed by all this hospitality, and so that he may relax. And Sudama says, oh, thank you so much, Krishna. And he says, I'm so excited to see you. And Krishna goes, Sudama, you come after so long. I'm sure your wife would have prepared you something to bring me as a gift. What did you bring me? And Sudama felt that his gift was nothing compared to Krishna's hospitality. So he said, oh, I'm so sorry, Krishna, but in the midst of all this, I forgot to bring you anything. I'm so sorry. And he kind of hid his little bindle behind him. And Krishna saw that. And he grabbed for that little bindle, and all the poha, the parched rice, fell to the floor. And Krishna looked at it. And when Sudama expected him to grimace, Krishna's face enlightened. He was like, oh my goodness, you remember after so long that my favorite food is poha? And he looked at it, and even though he was a king, he started eating it off the floor, so excited. Thank you so much, Sudama. And Sudama was just again charmed by all this. And Krishna insisted that Sudama stay for a few days in the palace. And Sudama was given this huge room with the most humongous soft bed he could ever imagine, which is nothing compared to his little hut and the little mat that he slept on. So Sudama stayed there for a few days, and it came time for him to depart. So he went to Krishna and said, my dear Krishna, thank you so much for all the hospitality you have given me. I will never forget it. And he thanked him and said, but I must go on. I must go see my family. And Sudama bid him farewell, and Krishna also bid him farewell, giving him a hug. But this time he insisted that Sudama go in his best chariot with his best chariotsmen. So Sudama was off again on this great chariot to go back home. So as they get going, they're almost at his street, and they finally arrive at Sudama's street. And this time, when he's at his street, he looks far. But instead of a hut being there, there's a humongous mansion, a humongous house with so many jewels on the exterior. And he asks the chariotsman, I'm sorry, but I think we might be at the wrong street. Let's just pull over to the next street. But right when he's about to do that, a little child wearing the most beautiful gold jewelry and silk clothing runs outside and says, hi, you're finally here. And he's like, why is this child calling out for me? I'm a little confused. But then the child says, Father, you're here. And he realizes, that's my child. And he tells this chariotsman, oh my goodness, my child. He's wearing beautiful gold jewelry and silk clothing. And he runs outside and he hugs him and says, well, how are you living here? And then a few minutes later, his wife Sushila walks out wearing the most beautiful silver sari with the most beautiful gold and diamond jewelry. And he says, oh my goodness. And he prays inside his heart, saying, my Lord, I did not ask you for any of this because I do not crave for wealth. Yet out of your mercy and your love, you give to all. So this is the greatness of the love that God has. And he prays and says, thank you. His family lived happily ever after with all this wealth, but also with an increased devotion for Krishna, praising his name for the rest of their lives. Vasudeva Krishna says, whoever listens to the story of Sudama is blessed. Thank you.